bit more about what there is for volunteering, but also how to mentor and kind of just learn about the importance and some of the nonprofits in the area that really work in that area.
Hey, Kyle.
Hey, how's it going?
There's a fun. How about you? Looks like homecoming turned out great. You guys did an awesome job.
Thanks. Yeah, we were really happy with it.
All right, so I'm going to close the poll here in just a second. So if you want to put any last answers in there, go for it, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for taking part in that poll. We do try to get a lot of feedback as far as what interests you, and that was a cool little test way that we tried out. And thank you for your answers. I thought it was cool to see everything moving as it was going forward. So today is part 2 of our webinar series, How to Be a Mentor. And I'm Justin Gomez. I'm the YPA Community Engagement Chair. And so before jumping into mentoring, I just want to mention our next YPA event coming up. It is October's Lunch with Leaders, and it's featuring the new executive director for National Hispanic Cultural Center. And the event will be on Thursday, October 29th from noon to 1. And she has an incredible leadership story. I always walk away with something from each Lunch with Leaders, so I highly recommend checking it out. And then I'd also like to introduce our panel of nonprofits. So we have Avery Frank with Big Brothers Big Sisters. See her waving over there. We have Lindsay Humphreys with Junior Achievement. And we have Sierra Luddington with NMCAN. And Kristen, if you could get the chance to change your name to Sierra there, or NMCAN. Okay. And apologies, everyone. You can probably tell I'm just a little bit nervous. This is the first one I'm fully running, so pardon the slowness. Okay, so we have a bunch of questions just to kind of get a better idea of what mentoring is and the importance of it, why we have it in the community. And so to start out, we have a little icebreaker. I'm going to start this one. Lindsay, if you wouldn't mind sharing what your role is for the organization, what the role is for your organization, but then also who is a mentor in your life.
Sure. So hi, everybody. I'm Lindsay Humphreys. I'm the program director for Junior Achievement of New Mexico. And so what I do is I work with a team to bridge the gap between education and the corporate world. And so I connect community members and educators so that we can inspire young people in the classroom. And for myself being mentored, I've been very privileged, and I've had great bosses throughout my life who always have kind of taken that role. Most recently, I've had Mark Schmidt, who I used to be a teacher, and coming into nonprofit world, I was very high strung after teaching. And he was just this calm, humble presence, and he was just a very great person to start off in this new world. And now as I've progressed in my role, I now have Erin Hagenow as my boss, and she's an amazing powerhouse in the community, and she's all things nonprofit, a huge mentor to me. But then on a personal and professional side, I have Rhiannon Samuel, which I'm sure you've seen on YPA calls. She is my mentor as well, and I'm very lucky to have her in my corner.
And then Avery, what about you? What's your role in your organization and who's a mentor to you?
I don't know if you guys can hear the background noise. I apologize for that. Hi, I'm Avery. I am the Assistant Manager of Education Programs with Big Brothers Big Sisters, which basically means I help to see one of our programs called Mentor 2.0, which matches high school students to mentors in the community. I also oversee the entire 9th grade class. So I'm a match support specialist for the 9th grade class as well, and get them prepared for the Mentor 2.0 program. For me, I would say honestly, the most consistent mentor in my life has been my dad. He's been the person that I've pretty much like looked up to. He's helped me grow as like an individual, academically, professionally. And he's definitely just a solid resource in my life in terms of that. So yeah.
Thank you. And what about you, Sierra?
Hi, so my name is Sierra Luddington, and I work for NMCAN. I'm our community engagement coordinator. I oversee our volunteer training and support program. And for me, the first mentor that comes to mind is a professor who used to run the service learning program at UNM. And what just always really stuck out to me was that he brought food for all of his classes all week, all semester, because he was a hungry college student and he knew what it was like to not be able to focus in class. And so, yeah, he's an amazing human being and somebody I still keep up with via text and email as he kind of moves around the world.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing, and certainly came from all different ways, these mentors and the impacts that they had. And I think for most of us, when we think on it, there's probably a mentor in our lives as well that we could probably name. I'd like to ask Sarah again, why is it important to mentor?
Cool. So from my perspective, you know, mentors come in all sorts of forms and for all sorts of reasons, but just really tailoring it to kind of our perspective in our program. For us, it's just really rooted in having a relationship within your community that ties you to that place and offers an opportunity for you to explore a relationship with maybe somebody you might not otherwise have bumped into or been around, and a relationship that can offer you both new experiences and new perspectives.
Nice, that was great. And what about you, Lindsay?
So I think mentoring is super important because in order to break any cycle, you have to have exposure to other worlds, right? And so I think that it comes with talking about what JA does and why it's important to mentor is exposure plus relatability equals difference. And so when you get exposed to different things in your world and those people are relatable and down to earth, they really make an impact. And we at JA have found that that actually is the case. 20% of the students who participate in JA actually go into the field of their volunteer. And so that's like a really cool, or their mentor, whoever is in their classroom, they have a huge impact and that person might be exposed to that field that they never would have been exposed to otherwise.
Awesome, thank you. And yeah, I mean, you just learned so much, and that exposure is important. And feel free to chime in, you know, Lindsay, Avery, and Sierra as you see fit. But Avery, you want to go ahead and say why it's important?
Yeah, definitely. I think like as we've all just heard, we can kind of agree that mentoring is important for a bunch of different reasons, right? But there's some linking things here, this belief in our community, this one-to-one relationship, bettering people, things like that. At Big Brothers Big Sisters, we really believe in kind of inspiring that potential of all of the youth in our community. So as you can see, there are these similarities between all of our agencies. And with that comes this increase in social capital for both the mentor and the mentee, which in turn really helps to impact the future of our communities, future generations, things like that. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, great answers. And it's really full circle, right? You mentor, but you're also learning just as much and getting just as much out of it. And we wanted to bring in somebody from Big Brothers Big Sisters, a mentee, who could share the story, just give you a firsthand account of that impact of mentoring, the difference that it really makes. And I don't see her name on here, so I'm just going to do a quick call out. Jacqueline, are you in the Zoom?
So she'll be on in just like 2 minutes. She's just running a little bit late.
Okay. Thank you, Adriana. So we'll go ahead and jump to the next question then, and then when she's able to jump on, we'll get a chance to hear her story going through the program of Big Brothers Big Sisters in 2.0, but just that mentoring story. And so we'll go ahead and jump into learning a little bit more about the organizations. And Avery, do you want to kick this one off and just give us a little description of what Big Brothers Big Sisters is?
Yeah, definitely. So overview, Big Brothers Big Sisters is, we have a national office, so Big Brothers Big Sisters of America. They've been doing their thing for about 100 years, offering mentoring services to the community. And then we also have local offices. So Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central New Mexico, which is where I work, that would be considered a local office. We've been offering mentoring and things like that to the community for over 50 years. We just had our 50th anniversary back in 2019. Currently at our Central New Mexico office, we offer 2 different types of programs to get involved. Those range from community-based to Mentor 2.0. And community-based is usually what people think of when they think of Big Brothers Big Sisters. You have a little in the community, you do outings together. It's a much more flexible volunteer opportunity. And it's really just based around that one-to-one connection, and really providing that support and role modeling to a youth in the community. Generally, we see that that like demographic or age group is usually younger, like elementary students, although you can be in the program up until 18. But for people who want a little bit more of a structured opportunity, we do have the Mentor 2.0 program, where that was basically created out of this need within New Mexico specifically, and then on a broader scale, of an education-based program to kind of help out with graduation rates, post-secondary success, and things like that. Mentor 2.0 is a really awesome program. We function out of 2 schools. We work with 9th through 12th grade on a whole school model. So in that sense, we're able to serve all youth in that high school, so everybody gets a chance. Once again, it kind of goes back to our thing of inspire that potential of all youth. So our demographic ranges in both programs. The age stuff is different, but the demographic is all over the place. We work with all types of children from all different backgrounds and things like that. Mentor 2.0 is a really interesting program too, because you can kind of think of it as like an internet-based pen pal, but you actually get to see them because you write to them each week through a curriculum that we've designed. And then you can actually meet them. We used to do face-to-face, now it's, virtual, but you can meet them once a month. So you get this kind of both sides of it, which is really cool. So those are the 2 programs we offer right now.
Thanks, Avery. And I think I saw Jacqueline just jumped on, but we'll finish this couple of questions or these couple answers real quick, and then we'll jump to Jacqueline for her story. Sierra, do you want to explain a little bit about your program?
Yeah, sure thing. So NMCAN was started here in Albuquerque back in 1990. Just for a little bit of context, our work really began in the realm of child welfare. And just, in the interest of being kind of best practices and really like listening to the young people we served, we discovered that a really difficult point in age for a lot of young people in our community was this kind of transition age. So we served this population of young people kind of between the ages of 14 and 25, beginning with those young people who've been impacted by foster care, understanding that most of them don't have really supportive adults in their life, and many of their relationships have been disrupted. And so kind of stemming from there, we've kind of grown to serve a broader base of young people in Albuquerque, and actually just the Bernalillo County in general, even out to Los Lunas, because what we've learned is that often the system involvement may begin with foster care, and then it it has connections to juvenile justice and homelessness. They tend to be issues that roll into each other. And so we kind of serve a broader base of young people now, understanding that they're at an age where they really need supportive adults to help them become successful adults. And so our programming kind of works at 3 levels for them. At our kind of individual level, we have coaches who work with young people on kind of their individual needs, resource guiding, and just kind of helping them identify their goals. Then in kind of our community level, we have programs like our volunteering programs. We have both mentoring and we have volunteer financial coaches who kind of create this community wraparound support of young people. And then at our highest kind of level, we do advocacy work at the legislature. And our legislative work is led by the young people in our organization. I mean, they lead a lot of our programming, and they go up every year and advocate to basically to break down systemic barriers that they're facing. And so, yeah, so it's kind of the 3 tiers of the NMCAN work. And our mentorship program was just largely built out of the need for them to have a supportive adult in their lives.
Thanks, Sierra. I'll jump in. So JA, we are also have been around. We're an affiliate of JA USA, and so we've been around for 100 years, similar to Big Brothers Big Sisters. Here in New Mexico, we've been around for 26 years. And then kind of starting high level. So the mission of JA is to inspire and prepare young people to own their economic success. And so what we do in order to do that is we bring subject matter mentors into the classroom to teach financial literacy, work readiness, and entrepreneurship. And those are all done by committed volunteers over a series of weeks. And you go in and you give your content expert kind of mantra in there, and you come in and you offer that relatability and that exposure and just a different person into the classroom as well. And so the cool thing about that, though, is in a normal world, there's 16 different programs that we offer, right? K to 12. And but now during COVID, everybody's had to kind of adjust, right? And so we are a classroom-based mentoring volunteer program, but now there's no classrooms in person. And so what does that look like? And so we've had to completely adjust to figure out what the teachers needed, and the teachers needed content that is virtual. And so we heard that, we listened, and we developed our programs that are usually very hands-on and interactive to these genuine, fun, kind of like this dynamic with a bunch of 5th graders or a bunch of kindergartners on the call, and you have the teacher on the call, and you're on the call, and you're trained, and you're just talking to them about the difference between needs and wants and saving your money, and you get to talk to them on the very beginner side of like what is money to all the way up to like high school, where you're talking about budgeting and buying your first car. And so then that's kind of how JA came to be in the beginning. Was there were 3 kids that were in school thinking they weren't being taught these skills. And so now 100 years later, they're still not taught in schools. And so that's kind of why JA is here and why we're important. And you know, like I said earlier, you just have to be relatable and you have to give them that exposure, and that person in the classroom is a different person than the teacher. And so you make that impact in that way. So our program we have currently is teaching virtually over a Zoom or a Google platform.
That's awesome. And so many different ways of mentoring, but all also very important and also very interesting, I would say too. Jacqueline, if you're ready to jump in and just share a little bit of your story, your experience with Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Yeah, definitely. Can you guys hear me okay?
It's a little low, but yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let me. Okay. Is that better? Okay. Sorry, I just got off of work. But my Jacqueline, am a mentee at Big Brothers Big Sisters. My mentor is Angela Padilla. She's the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Hey, Jacqueline, it went on mute. If you wouldn't mind taking that back on.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, so like I said, my name's Jacqueline. I'm Angela Padilla's mentee. She's the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters. Me and her were matched my freshman year of high school, which was 2015, I think. And I remember when we were first matched, I went to South Valley Academy. And I remember when we were first matched, I didn't want to be at that school anymore. I wanted to transfer to a public school because I wanted to play sports and, go to a bigger school. And she knew that if I were to move, then I wouldn't be a part of the program anymore. And so instead of she was just super supportive, and I ended up staying, and I'm so glad I did because I just was able to build that relationship with her. And that second semester of my freshman year, my mom got really sick, and Angela was there like every step of the way. Like my mom was in the hospital, and I was taking care of my little brother, and just things were really hard, and she was there to like help me out, even though like it caused some problems between like me and my dad. Like she was always there to support me and help me out with anything that I needed. And so we just grew together. We grew up like she basically watched me grow up. She watched me like become from this young I was super shy to like this independent person that I am now, and like reaching for my goals. And she was there since the beginning, and she saw all those changes going on in my life. And let's see, she helped me a lot, especially with like getting like essays for like school and stuff. So she helped me through school, but she like I said, she also helped me like in my personal life, like figuring out things with my family and myself, and like where I wanted to go to college. And it was nice having her as like a big sister there for me. And so I graduated in May of 2019, and me and her are still matched, and we still see each other. This summer I actually got to work with Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I feel like she's not only like had an impact in like my personal life, but she's also helped me like build connections like professionally, and I wouldn't trade her for the world.
Thank you, Jacqueline, for sharing. It's just always so cool to hear. And if you wouldn't mind me asking, how did you feel when you first started the program versus when you ended it?
So honestly, at first, because I hadn't really heard about it that much, at first I was a little nervous. Well, at first they had told me that that my mentor was like who was it? I can't remember her name, but it was like the coordinator at that school. She had told me, she's like, "You're matched with my boss." And I was like, "Oh, okay." But I didn't know she was like the big boss. And but I feel like me and her are such a good, like a perfect match, if that like even exists, because we are so similar in like not our personalities, but well, kind of like our personalities, but I feel like me and her just like make each other like better people, if that makes sense. Like she's the CEO, and like I like always I feel like we're both leaders, and like we both help each other throughout stuff like that. Like whenever we meet, she tells me about something going on at work, and like I like give her my opinion, or like my perspective on it. And the same thing that she does, like she gives me her perspective on different things that we're working on. And so at first I was like nervous for it, and I wasn't sure like if it was for me, but I'm so glad I did it. And I could say like I'm one of the few like matches that are like super engaged, and like I advocate for Big Brothers Big Sisters now. And now that I'm a part of the Mentor 3.0 program, I hope to like be a mentor someday myself.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you can really see like both of you are supporting each other, and you know, your big sister is learning just as much about life and about you as you are about her and about life. And you're, of course, now your own young professional embarking. And so thank you for just sharing with a bunch of other young professionals.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for making some time. I know you are indeed busy.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. And if anybody wants to say thank you in the chat, go for it. Really appreciate you making the time. Want to give a little bit more time for the other agencies to talk a little bit more about what they do and how to get involved. And so the next question that I really wanted to cover was the impact. And you could kind of see that with Jacqueline. You could kind of see that with why these organizations were being created. But I would really just like to ask, and I'll start with you, Lindsay, what kind of impact can you have with junior achievement or with mentoring?
Thank you so much for sharing, Jacqueline. That was a really empowering story. Thank you so much. So the impact of JA, so I could start by just saying all the wonderful quotes I have, but the bigger thing I want to just make sure that everyone understands is our mentoring opportunity is in a classroom, so you have a wider impact versus a one-on-one impact. And so whereas you can make that impact with one kiddo, but you kind of get to spread your love to the entire class, and you get to share all the good multiple times in a series, but yet you're giving them that content. So you're giving them content and you're empowering them by just being in the room and being transparent and being honest. And so I think that impact for JA is, I feel like I can cover it in one quote. So one of the kiddos in our last program, she said, seeing this mentor made me realize that women can really do anything. And I just thought that was the coolest thing to hear, because it was a woman engineer who was in the room talking to her, a Hispanic woman, and she's like, she looks like me, she is an engineer. She, you know, it was very empowering that she was able to feel empowered by that one woman, but yet there were 40 kids on the call. And so that one was that honest opinion, but you don't know if there were all those other kids on that call that were feeling that impact as well. And so when I say JA, you're in the classroom with everyone. And so you can reach one person and you can make that impact for that one kiddo, but then you might get that little group of mean girls that you make that impact with. And then those kiddos, you know, you get that little group of 5 girls, and then you get the whole class remembers that you were the one that taught them about piggy banks. Like, so it's kind of a wider scale of your impact. And then on top of it, you're being able to be covering content that's a little bit more structured. So the impact is just different. And so, but then you get to be that role model for the whole class and a couple of students. And I can't even tell you how many times when I walk into the classroom as the volunteer, it's like, Miss Lindsay's here! And it's just like the most excited kindergarten class. And so they just like run to you, and you're like their world for that 30-minute block, right? And so then you go back, and then it also just makes you excited to go back. And then you think of those kiddos still to this day. I can remember their names, and you're just like, I wonder what little Leah's doing. And, you know, it's just, it's really interesting. And so I think the impact can be on a wide scale, but then you can reach the one, the some, and the all. You know, you can reach all of them or some of them. And if you get one, you're doing your job.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lindsay. And what about you, Avery? What about for Big Brothers Big Sisters, the impact?
Yeah, definitely. So similarly to Lindsay, our Mentor 2.0 program does function in a classroom setting. So we do see that kind of same impact of being able to help a lot of people at the same time. The difference, I would say, with our classroom engagement or things like that is we have a match support specialist that actually teaches that curriculum or soft skills to the class. And the way the volunteer comes in is that one-to-one supplemental support. And then also in terms of just across the board, mentoring has been proven to help with self-esteem and leadership skills and different things like that in youth. So just across the board, there is a huge impact in any program you choose to do. to really change or shape the future for a student. Also within our Mentor 2.0 program, it has been proven through evidence-based research to be helping with graduation rates with children who complete our program, post-secondary success, college attendance rates. So it really kind of comes down to the type of impact you want to have in your community or in a child's life, because I feel like with the community-based program, you can have that much more one-to-one role modeling support. I'm this person's big brother, big sister. Whereas with our Mentor 2.0 program, you can have much more of a structured statistical impact in your community that's setting it up for future in terms of like economic success and things like that. So I think it does definitely come down to a personal and also how much time you have to give, because they both come with different time commitments and restraints and things like that. So that's always something to think about too in terms of the impact with programs.
Yeah, thank you, Avery. And the research definitely there for the positives of mentoring. Thank you for sharing some examples. About you, Sierra?
Yeah, that's hard to follow up. Y'all said a lot of things. So I'm just gonna keep it pretty simple. You know, our mentorship program started because young people asked to have an adult in their life who was not paid to be there. And it's a really tough thing to be a 15, a 16, an 18-year-old kid and feel like nobody's ever just been there to be there. And in some ways that can sound like a really small thing, but it can actually be the biggest thing for them, because they're going to navigate lots of ups and downs as they try to figure out how to be a successful adult. But I think we can all attest to the fact that like having somebody who had your back while you were trying to navigate all those things makes the difference. And I just, I can't stress enough, like how much it means to them that somebody just wants to be there. And that's a pretty amazing impact to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like you really got to the heart of it there. And I think you can really see the value of mentoring just hearing all these stories, the organizations. And I think when a potential volunteer might be thinking of like mentoring, one of the things they might be worried about is like, well, what kind of support do I have? And Sierra, if you wouldn't mind just sharing, like, what does support look like in your program?
Totally. So you're looking at your support right here. So my job is to give all of our volunteers the tools that they need. So we have like a pretty solid training session with a lot of practice activities that I design. So a lot of talking to me and just like a lot of fun and interesting information. I mean, it's not always fun. Some of it's a little sad, but a lot of like great information and knowledge to just kind of learn about the barriers these young people are facing, to kind of use that as a framework, as well as some great exercises on empathy and communication. My background's in communication, so it's one of my favorite things to teach. And so we just have like a great training program, as well as I'm there as a support. And in a typical non-COVID year, we have a lot of in-person events where we just get all of our volunteers, all of our young people together. And so there's definitely this opportunity to do kind of community building within the larger community. A big reason that I chose to work at NMCAN is because we have a hiking and camping series, which our volunteers typically do with us. So that's a pretty cool way to be supported and to be out with your mentee. And then the other really cool thing about our program is because we do work with mentees on an individual level, they have what's called a youth engagement coordinator. And then basically our volunteers have what's called a community engagement coordinator. And so basically you have a wraparound team to kind of help do some support around that relationship, because sometimes it's tough. Like, I'm going to be honest, like building a relationship out of thin air is not always an easy gig. And so we just try to put in all the things we can to help support that.
Excellent. I'm just going to jump in. Is that okay? Okay. And so that's just perfect, because that's exactly like you're making such an impact, and like you need that support, right? And getting that training is so important. So yeah, it sounds like it's the nonprofit norm, but you're also looking at the support team for JA's program department. We're a 3-man wrecking crew in the entire organization, and I'm 1/3 of the staff. So we also provide training for our volunteers and we go through the activities. And because we are delivering specific content that focuses on financial literacy, work readiness, and entrepreneurship, when I taught the 6th grade program, had no idea about the risk and for insurance. And so I was glad I had a little bit of training before I went into the classroom for the first time to talk about those skills. And so we go through and we talk about all of those curriculum and activities and how to actually be in a classroom for the first time, because that could be really intimidating, especially if you haven't been in a classroom since you graduated from high school. And then, so I kind of have like an open phone policy. I introduce you to an educator, but yet that educator is your support system, as well as me and the whole JA team, whether I'm available or not. We all kind of all hands on deck. And so my cell phone and my email are listed in all of my communications with you and the educator. And so if there's something, I've even sat down with a volunteer before to just play the memory game because she couldn't figure it out. And so it's just a way that, sometimes it just needs another person and another set of eyes. And so the volunteers are why we can do what we do in every organization that's here right now. So we want to support you in any way we can, and we don't want to lose you. So supporting you is the main priority, I'm sure, for all of our organizations. So.
Yeah, definitely. As Lindsay said, all of our organizations function off volunteering and just this concept of community, which I think a lot of us can agree drives a lot of the things that we do, right? We want to create a good community. We want to have a strong community for the future, things like that. Within Big Brothers Big Sisters, we also offer training. I think all of these organizations are going to do that. We offer a pre-match training, so before you ever even meet your mentee in both programs. That training does differ if you do community-based versus Mentor 2.0, because the rules and regulations of those programs are different. As I said before, Mentor 2.0 is a little bit more structured, so you don't have that outside contact with that child, whereas in community-based you would. So that training is going to look a little bit different of how you relate. Throughout both programs, you are assigned what's called a match support specialist. This is a person who will help guide your relationship. They'll give you coaching tips. They'll check in with you on a regular basis through phone calls, email, provide you resources, updates about the agency, things like that. You'll also get access to what's called the Learning Exchange, which has all different types of material for all different types of learners, be it visual, audio, articles, different things like that. And this is updated frequently, and it has all types of information about mentoring, child development, trauma-informed care, different things like that. Pretty much any topic you can think of relating to mentoring and youth and child development is probably on our Learning Exchange. Also, as things happen in our society, those articles get updated. So for instance, like with the pandemic, they released a bunch of training on how to mentor during a pandemic and things like that. So it is nice that it is updated throughout. And then I would say the last piece would kind of be like events. We do host what's called like mentor huddles or mentor mixers, where then you can kind of work and meet other mentors and work with them to think about best practices or maybe share scenarios you guys are experiencing, almost like mentor each other in a sense. So we really kind of support you on all levels, which I think is a similarity between all these organizations. It sounds like is a multi-pronged approach to support. So that's pretty nice.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, you're definitely not alone there. There's a lot of tools to make sure you succeed. And I mean, just as you three as an example, like very personable, hands-on, easy to work with. So certainly have a lot of support there. And a couple more points, and then we have a Q&A at the end. But I enjoy this question because it just gets so many different kind of answers. The do's and don'ts of mentoring. We got 3 experienced women here in their programs. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what to do and what not to do when you're mentoring. And Sierra, do you wanna kick this one off?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. Avery said some great things, so I'm gonna wait for her to wrap around. Yeah, so for don't set expectations before you meet the young person you're gonna work with. You know, like every relationship, is different, you know, and some of our mentors, like some of them play board games once a week, and that's like really what they do. And they talk about like wrestling and sports. And then I want to like talk about the personal stuff. And some mentors help young people get involved in school, do tutoring. So, you know, every person's going to be different. And along those lines, don't be judgmental. And I know this can be hard. You know, we sometimes don't even realize we're wearing our judgment hat, but a lot of young people have already faced enough judgment from adults in their life that they really need to develop a new healthy relationship where an adult is really just like a supporting, like caring person. And so they have an opportunity to build a really great, healthy relationship. For my do's, well, do be caring and empathetic. That's one of them. Also, do explore new activities and have fun. You know, we work with teenagers, but that doesn't mean that like they don't want to do silly things sometimes. So like, feel free to be a little silly. And also just be yourself. Like our young people really appreciate when somebody is genuine. Like they don't expect a mentor to be perfect or to have all the answers. They just like, they appreciate a genuine adult. So I'm gonna leave it at that.
That's very close to mine that I jotted down. The don'ts for mentoring would be don't be fake, don't be unprepared, and then don't just be there to check off a box. And so with the fact that JA is a curriculum that that it's being taught to the kiddos, there is some prep work. And so coming in and just being there to, I mean, it's great to be with the kiddos, but if that's all you're there for, then you still have to provide that content. And so you're giving them content as well as your exposure to the world. And then also kids, I guess we're adults here, right? I'm so used to talking to kids. Kids can see through bullshit. So like, they're like ultimate, they have that radar. So if you're just there to check off a box, they're going to be just checking off you. Like they're going to be like, okay, he's here now, or she's here now. And they're going to just write you off and they'll be disengaged. And so and then that kind of goes into the do's is like, you need to be real, be transparent. Everybody flubs. I mean, I think we all came in and we had like these like perfect little scripts. They're like these ideas of what we wanted to say, but like even in this context, you got to be real. You got to be transparent. You got to be open and go with the flow. And so my do's are be real, be present and transparent, have fun, and embrace mistakes. And so those kind of, if you are, I was a teacher for 5 years beforehand, and the best thing is that they don't know when you screw up. So even if you're in the room and you're not doing the job that you thought you were going to do, no one is going to know as long as you're there, you're being honest, and you're having fun. So those are mine.
That is very true, Lindsay. I've been a teacher as well. I mean, I'm currently an instructor for 9th graders, and no one knows if you mess up as long as you don't tell them. With a class of kids, if you stray from the curriculum you're supposed to do that day, they don't know. But yeah, I mean, I really think that a lot of our responses are going to be similar. Obviously, we all have similar missions in what we do. With our program specifically, one of the biggest things is do set up communication and boundaries and things like that. Because if you don't have a standard of communication with your little, whether you're in Mentor 2.0 or community-based, you may be setting that kid up to be disappointed because they may think, oh, I'm going to hear from this person every week. When in your head, you were thinking, oh, I'm only going to talk to them once a month, right? So being transparent about those boundaries or those communication standards is one really big do. Similarly to what Sierra was saying about that judgment-free thing, a big thing that we do, we train on implicit bias because it's very important coming into our program since we have such a wide demographic. You could be matched with a kid with any type of background. And we recognize that every person to some varying degree has a level of implicit bias, which is different than explicit bias, but everyone does have that to some level. So what we like to do is kind of really train people on one, recognizing that, being able to check that. So if you're matched with a student, you can recognize, hey, how am I communicating to this person? Am I being aware of their cultural background? Am I being aware of their economic status? Whatever that is. A big don't would be, don't think that you can't learn anything from the child. As you could see from Jacqueline, our guest speaker, she was able to kind of show like, even though I'm matched with the CEO and I'm just a kid, we still can learn things from each other, right? And in high school or community-based, these kids have great perspectives. And most of the time they don't have somebody to listen to that perspective or to encourage them to think about that perspective. So that's a really big thing. Also, like in Mentor 2.0, do talk about yourself, your career, things like that. These kids want that information. They want to know, how did you get to be where you are? What did you do? What steps did you take? Similar to how I think most of us, even, that's why we're part of this, YPA, that's why we're here. We want to be able to make those next steps. So being transparent about that stuff. Community-based, maybe not. You might be matched with an elementary kid that's like, I don't really care how you became a CEO. So definitely like read the room on that one. But yeah, I think those would be just a few do's and don'ts.
Love it. Thank you. Great energy, Avery, too. I was just getting excited at the idea of mentoring, and yeah, an elementary kid might just want to go to the park and swing, and you're good. Like they're happy with that. Yeah, and I hear a lot of just being there, being open, and being real, with that youth or in that mentoring opportunity. And so to conclude the kind of questions in the panel part, Avery, would you like to start off just saying how to get involved if somebody was interested in Big Brothers Big Sisters and mentoring?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm gonna put this in the chat. This is our website. Once I copy and paste it. This is our website. So the best way to get involved would be to go to our actual website. You would fill out a brief application, and then at that point, an enrollment specialist will actually contact you. The process to get involved for our programs is very in-depth. The initial inquiry is pretty short, but we do a lot of background checks, reference checks, things like that. So when I say in-depth, I mean like in that sense. Also, another thing to keep in mind when you look at these programs, because there'll be a bio about both on the website, is really make sure that your time that you can dedicate really lines up with what the program is set up to offer. Because with other volunteer opportunities, and I don't know if y'all will agree, but I feel this way, with certain volunteer opportunities, when it's not a person-to-person experience, you can kind of bite off more than you can chew and then test the waters. When you're working from person to person and you're providing that support, you don't want to bite off more than you can chew with a relationship. So that is one thing of getting involved, is just make sure you read a little bit about how much time. I mean, Mentor 2.0, we're talking about like 4 to 6 hours a month max. And that would be our more time-consuming program. So it's not a lot, but it is something to think about. But that's right in the chat for anybody who wants it.
Thank you, Avery. Sarah, how do you get involved in NMCAN?
Yeah, so we do a volunteer orientation. And so the best thing to do if you're interested is come to an orientation, come ask questions, and just kind of come learn more about our volunteer opportunities in general. Like, we'll talk about mentoring, but we have a couple other opportunities as well. So I will also drop a link in the chat box for you to be able to sign up for that.
For getting involved with JA, I think we, as Sierra kind of said, it's a small organized when you're doing with the programs. It's so you're just going to email me, and we'll get you going. So I'm going to drop my email in, and it can be just like an inquiry if you're just interested or anything. We have the virtual classroom guides is our program that we have currently running, but there is a little bit more of opportunities when it comes to other virtual, moving forward in this virtual world that we can look into. So if you're just interested and want to know more, you can send me a simple email. Hey, I want to know more, and I'll send you some stuff.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So thank you, everyone who joined. We're still going to do a Q&A at the end, but I just want to say thank you. Thank you to Jacqueline. I think she had to jump to work, but thank you for sharing your story. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Avery. Thank you, Sierra, for sharing your program and really just being real, being exactly what mentoring is, and sharing your experience and talking about the program. Thank you, Nusenda. They are sponsoring YPA. They're keeping us going. They're helping us continue on, and of course, essentially a a financial mentor of the community, if I can say it in that way. But they're also very community driven. And so to finish off, I'd like to do a Q&A. So if you wouldn't mind dropping off any questions in the chat box, and then each person can kind of just tag as they think fit to answer. I would love to just start off a question and ask, what's a favorite mentoring experience that you've had in your agency or in your experience? If anybody wants to tackle that.
I just realized I was still unmuted, so I'll go. So I'm glad I wasn't just like talking or something. I would say that one of my favorite experiences was I actually had the opportunity to work. So when I was a teacher in teaching school, we had to actually work for JA back in Iowa. And so that was like my first JA experience, and going in and like the kiddos are actually talking about banks and talking about different jobs in the community. And so that's probably one of my first and like most influential. And it actually was like one of the things I talked about in my interview for this job was, you see that impact when I was like 19, 20. And then now I'm like running the programs department. So it's kind of cool to see how the full scale, how those kids just, one time the kiddo was like, did you know that you can have a savings account and another savings account? So you can save for a car and you can save for a snowboard. And then I was just like, I didn't know that. You taught me something. Thank you so much. And it's just, he thought he was blowing my mind. And that was probably just like, when you think about on an individual scale of like what's going through that kid's head, that's probably one of my favorites. But then just really quick, one more. The other one that I loved was there was a kindergarten that was raising his hand, but the teacher didn't have time, or the volunteer didn't have time to answer it. So he's like, no, put your hand down. And he stood up and he was like, no, you have to buy the sandwich with the drink and the cookie instead of just the sandwich, because you get more for your money. And it was like, he was just so mind blown that was even possible. And so those are my two, like, what JA can do stories.
Thank you, Lindsay. That was great stories.
I'd be happy to take this question from Rachel, because this is a really great question.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so this is actually, I don't want to discourage anybody, but like, it's a little bit more common than you would think, especially because you're coming into this experience and you're an adult that they don't know, and maybe they haven't fully bought into the idea of having a mentor. So this is all just kind of a tester. And so I think the best thing that you can do if you're having trouble with a mentee who's not being engaged is, one, try to ask a lot of questions and maybe identify something that they might have an interest in and kind of follow their interest to try to start to build your relationship. Two, and I'm sure this is common with the rest of you all as coordinators, reach out to a coordinator and they may have ideas. Like sometimes we have isotopes tickets, or like we get like things that we can give out to volunteers to go do with their mentees. And number three, sometimes like you just got to trust that it'll take a little time. We know kind of developmentally, especially like with our young folks, like they don't have a high level of a trust for adults. So it usually takes about 6 months to a year for them to fully believe that you are going to stay and you're not just going to disappear. And so that can be a hard place to be as a mentor. But in our experience, that consistency and just showing them that first year that you'll continue to be there often makes a huge impact on them being like, okay, like this person's not going anywhere. I guess we're going to like do some things together. And they tend to open up at that point.
Yeah, similar at Big Brothers Big Sisters, you see a difference in engagement because obviously the volunteers, they signed up to be there. The kids, their parents may have signed them up. In Mentor 2.0, they just might be at the schools that the program's offered. So one big thing too with mentoring, don't take it personal. If your kid's not engaged, it's not about you. And if it is, I promise your match support specialist will let you know. At Big Brothers Big Sisters, if you're doing something or engaging in a way that's gonna be, detrimental to the child's development or something like that, that's what we're there to do as well. That's where that coaching comes in. That doesn't mean we'll close your match unless it's absolutely dangerous or something like that, but we will coach you to best practices. I also think too, is remembering that with mentoring, this is not immediate results. I don't think in any of these programs, we make an impact in every program here, but this does not happen overnight. And this is relationships. We're talking about relationships with people. So if you think about that you may have a mentee that you're like, dang, I feel like I never really connected with them. And then we're done with the program. That kid might remember you, 10 years down the line and be like, wow, I couldn't really open up then, but wow, just knowing that person was there. So sometimes with mentoring, you may never even see the impact you're making in someone's life. So I think that's something to keep in mind too. If you're looking for like immediate results of like right then and there, maybe not the best, you will see the relationship grow, absolutely. But that's always something to keep in mind.
Well said. Yeah, mentoring can be a challenge, but that important thing is to really be there. And there's so many things in place to lead it to success. And maybe the mentee will buy in, or maybe they won't. But you're there. You're going to be there, and that's what's important and really means something in the long run. John asked a question, I think, about how can you use your experience mentoring, professionally and personally. The question is, what practices do you all use to track past successes and accolades to add to your resume? If anybody wants to tackle that, or kind of the experience part of that question. And John, feel free to jump in.
I can touch on that. So we, so JA, we track successes. So the teachers who you work with, they evaluate how they think the program went. They're not evaluating you per se, but there is like a little box that they can recommend to have you next year. So we have some volunteers and mentors who have been with the same teacher for 7 years, and they've taught that group of kindergartners every year for 7 years. But then we also have had to have conversations with volunteers that maybe they didn't teach the program. And so we track those successes by using those surveys, but then we also have the students are surveyed to see if you what the impact of your partnership with them was. And so we track that. And then to add to your resume, I mean, you could totally put that you're a JA mentor on your resume. And I mean, whoever you're interviewing with, you might be at an organization that, we have a very connected board. And so you might be at US Bank and someone sees that you volunteer for JA, and the chair of our board is I don't remember her position right now, but someone might see JA and they've volunteered in the past, and it's a leg up in that environment. But then the other side of what we do is sometimes in the normal world, we're all together when we volunteer in some cases. So we take over a school and we bring all these people. And so you might be in the same room with people from Sandia, people from banks, teachers, you might be in the retired folk, and you might have all these people coming together in one room. And so you're able to bond and make connections that way as well.
Yeah, same thing at Big Brothers Big Sisters. We do a lot of surveys. We have a lot of different surveys that we implement to the children and to the volunteers to track different things depending on which program it is, they track different success measures. So with Mentor 2.0, we're really looking at that graduation rate, college attendance rate, post-secondary success. Because with Mentor 2.0 too, the whole program is not based necessarily off college acceptance, but a post-secondary idea or path laid out. So some of our students may want to do something different than college, and that's fine. So we keep it kind of at that post-secondary success rate. And then similar with what Lindsay said, there's different opportunities to network with those mentor mixers. We have a lot of volunteers from Sandia, from UNM, who are pretty high level, like senior leadership position kind of people. So that's always that opportunity. Also within like the Mentor 2.0 program, we offer what's called Mentor of the Month, which we actually will give you a certificate. And then that on there, it actually shows which skills you exemplified in like leadership or different things like that. So it's just like another tangible item that you can have, that you can list, or that you can show somebody when you're applying for a job, different things like that. So there's multiple ways.
Yeah, thank you, Avery, and thank you, Lindsay, and Sierra. Thank you for the answers and the really quality responses and explaining and helping us understand. And a great point too that there's a lot of great experience and networking that also comes in mentoring. Like it's giving back, and you're also surrounding yourself by good people who are also giving back, and you never know where those connections might line up. But those opportunities, that's how they're found. So I appreciate those answers. And of course, yeah, I think nonprofit has some surveys to measure things. That concludes our part 2 mentoring series on how to be a mentor. And thank you everyone for jumping in, for joining, for asking a lot of great questions, for our panelists, Lindsay, Avery, and Sierra, for really just sharing and telling us about it. I am as excited as ever about mentoring. Go reach out to my mentee right now. But thank you. Please look into those links, see different ways to get involved, and I hope you find some interest in one of those organizations. But thank you all.